Hello. Hi, everybody. How's it going? Hello to everybody in the balcony. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. This is our session on high-performance teams. It's about something called the core protocols. It's about psychological safety. It's about team emotional intelligence. That's me. This is me. I'm Richard Kasperowski. Hi, thanks for being here. I'm a writer, a speaker, a teacher, and a coach. I focus on high-performance teams. Most of my work is with this stuff called the core protocols. Some of it was with Agile. Some of it is with open space technology. I created and teach a course called Agile Software Development at Harvard. And I'm really happy to be here today. I got here Wednesday night. We taught a really great class yesterday. For people who were in the class yesterday, this is your practice session. We're going to practice a lot of the things we did yesterday. For people who weren't in the class yesterday, well, this is your first practice session. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to do a bunch of activities, and they're going to be guaranteed fun. To get started, this is actually the first activity. I want you to think about the best team you were ever on in your life. This could be any team you were ever on. We'll define team here as any group of 2 or more people who are aligned with a common goal. So that's a team. Any group of 2 or more people aligned with a common goal. So your best team in your life, that could be your current work team or a previous work team. It doesn't have to be a work team. It could be some sports team that you were on. Any group of 2 or more people. It could be a group of hobbyists that you spend time with, like if you like to knit, you have people who you like to knit with, or you like to go fishing, you have people you like to fish with. It could be your family, you and your significant other, that's 2 or more people, you and your family. It could be a volunteer organization like Agile Maine. It could be some charity group or a church group. So what is your very best team of your entire life? Now, this will be a silent, quiet thinking activity. I want you to take yourself back to that team. Sometimes this turns into sort of a guided meditation. You might even close your eyes. Let's try it. Close your eyes. It's totally safe here. Relax your belly. Breathe. Don't forget to breathe. Okay, that best team of your life, re-experience it. Take yourself back to that best team ever. Feel the sensation of being part of that team, being with those people. What's one word that might come to mind? What is one word that comes to mind for you when you re-experience the best team ever? You can open your eyes. Do you have one word? This could be the share with the audience part of the activity. What's one word that comes to mind when you re-experience your best team ever? Productive? Fun? Joy? Respect? Is it? Connected, cohesive, one, value, autonomous, safe, happy, appreciated, yeah, committed, right. So we've all had this experience of being on a great team at some point in our life. I share this with other groups. They come up with words similar to the words we just shared here. Another group, similar words. When I look back at my best teams, I experienced those things. And when I look back at my best teams, sometimes I feel like I just got lucky. Like, I don't really know how that happened. I don't really know how we got into that state. I'm grateful that we did. I was younger. I didn't know the things I know today. I had no way of making that happen on purpose. I really don't know what went into it. What we're going to do here in this 45 minutes is a few activities that can help you get into that best team condition again on purpose. Like stuff that you can do intentionally to get back into that state and have another best team of your life. So this is stuff we're going to do, including a bunch of fun activities. And we'll start with the science and research on high-performance teams. This will be a really quick cruise through the science and research. starts like this. Once upon a time, there was a little local newspaper, and they published a story about a little local company. The little local newspaper was in New York City. The little company was in this town called Mountain View. It was this company called Google. And what Google shared in the New York Times article a little over 2 years ago was their story about the research on high-performance teams. The research on high-performance teams goes back about 6 decades. People have been studying teams, there we go, trying to figure out what makes the best teams. So they figured out different things to measure, different characteristics that correlate to the best teams, including how to measure whether they're the best. Oh, and when I say high-performance teams, what I mean is they're objectively better than other teams doing the same work. So it's something you can measure, and it's for teams that do similar sorts of work. In the research, there's like 250 different one best things that people have identified. And Google wanted to figure out which one of those 250 one best things was the one best thing for teams at Google. So they replicated all of the research with 200 teams that volunteered to participate. And what they found at Google was that psychological safety was the one thing that correlated most to high performance in teams at Google. What they mean by psychological safety is basically that you feel safe, kind of like in your heart, in your head. It's okay to show up at the office being yourself. It's okay to admit you don't know something. You don't get punished for not knowing something. You don't get penalized for it. It's okay to make a mistake. Turns out that when you make a mistake, if you don't get punished for it, you learn from it. This is the key characteristic of high-performing teams, that they learn really fast. So as Google replicated the research, they found that psychological safety was the one key thing that correlated to high performance. I shared this story with a friend I made a couple years ago. His name was Steve Wolf. And this isn't, by the way, this isn't just tech companies. This is everywhere. This research on produced in all different industries, companies of all different sizes. This is from a dentist's magazine. I live in Newton, Massachusetts, right next to Boston. We've got more dentists in Newton than anywhere else in the world, at least per capita. And I was telling my new dentist what I did for work, and she ran to her office and pulled out this dentist's magazine about safety at the office. So this is everywhere. My new friend was Steve Wolf. Steve was the co-author of this article in Harvard Business Review. I was telling him the story of Google, and he hadn't heard the story of Google. Of course, he had heard the story of psychological safety, because he had been doing his PhD time as Amy Edmondson, who did the research on psychological safety.
We'll just trade out for this one.
Thanks. So okay, here we go. So I shared the story of Google with Steve. Steve hadn't heard it before, but of course he had heard about psychological safety. And he gave me new information. The new information that he's like, yeah, of course psychological safety correlates to high performance, but there's more to it than that. There's this bigger thing called team emotional intelligence, and psychological safety is one component of it. It's bigger than psychological safety. It's about relationships amongst people on the team and outside of the team. It's about things like caring behaviors for each other. It's things that you can observe in a team versus, well, the way they do it at Google even today is they'll measure your team's psychological safety, they'll tell you about psychological safety, and they'll say something like, okay, now go ahead, go back to your desk and do more psychological safety together, without telling you what behaviors to do. So that the team emotional intelligence is more about behaviors that you can observe. And that makes it more interesting. It's stuff that you can see people doing. It's stuff that you can learn how to do. It's about observing people investing in social capital amongst their teammates and amongst people outside their team. This leads to things like executive support. It kind of becomes obvious that when you've invested in relationships amongst your teammates and outside your team and you've got executive support, your team is going to be successful. Psych safety is a subset of this. Team EI is a bigger thing. So that's the academic work. Here's some non-academic work that's totally contemporaneous. It was done scientifically, although not published in academic journals. The core protocols are from these two nice people who live up in Washington State, Jim McCarthy and Michelle McCarthy. They worked at Microsoft. They were on an incredibly successful team at Microsoft. They felt like they got lucky, but they wanted to know how to do that again on purpose. So they left Microsoft and they opened a team research lab. In their lab, they would, at first, it was a 5-day experiment that they ran with no intervention at all, aside from giving a new team an assignment in 5 days to get it done. So they did this with 10 different teams. They ran the experiment 10 times, and they just watched. They watched the teams kind of work at their assignment, and they noticed that the teams that were successful did similar things to each other. They had some common behavior patterns. They were curious about whether they could sort of codify those behavior patterns and reteach them, teach them to new teams, do new experiments where the intervention would be teach these behaviors of successful teams to new teams and see what happens. So they did that. They codified these behaviors in patterns. They used a pattern language. They called their pattern language protocols. A protocol is a way for two humans to communicate with each other in a very clearly defined way, a very well-defined way, to make sure that there's no miscommunication. So sort of like a diplomatic protocol, make sure there's no miscommunication between diplomats, between two countries. So they documented 11 foundational behavior patterns. They called them the core protocols, the core behavior patterns. They ran the experiment 10 more times, starting by teaching teams these behavior patterns, giving them the assignment in 5 days to get it done. And they noticed that every time they taught teams these behavior patterns, those teams were successful. Then they replicated that with real teams in industry. Other people have done the same thing, replicating, teaching people these behavior patterns, and those teams are consistently successful. So this is the stuff that I want to share here today. Here's another way to look at the story. If you want a high-performance team, you probably do, then you definitely want psychological safety. Teams that are psychologically safe perform better. And if you want that, well, that's one component of team emotional intelligence. And there's still no good intervention, no way to just say, do more team emotional intelligence. So the behavior patterns that correlate to this from the evidence of watching successful teams and teaching them back to successful teams is core protocols. So that's the story, that's the science and research. And from here, we're gonna actually practice some of the stuff now. That's as much lecturing about it as I'm gonna do. Now we're gonna practice the behaviors. So first is this idea of positive bias. And I arrange the behaviors in a sort of like a protocol stack or a stacked layer of building blocks. And the foundation of this stacked layer of building blocks is positive bias. And when I say positive bias, what I mean is things like non-negativity, no negation, and pretend. The idea of non-negativity is that we will intentionally choose our words and our body language to get the results we want, positive results. Non-negation is kind of like not automatically saying no when somebody shares a new idea with you. And it goes along with pretend, which is to pretend that this new idea might work, sort of a learning strategy, to try it out, collect the data for yourself, get your own evidence, and then make your decision about whether this could work for you later in the future. Can we do this while we're here together for the rest of the 45 minutes? Okay, cool. Cool. And if you can't, this is your chance to sneak out, or just be quiet so the other people can learn. So we're gonna try this. We'll do an activity. For this activity, you need a partner. So we'll do this in groups of 2. I'll pause for a moment while you get yourself a partner. All right, shake your partner's hand. All right, that's like the forcing function to show that you have a partner. Okay, now we know you have a partner. Here's the activity. Your assignment is to make a plan for dinner tonight with your partner. You'll have 60 seconds to do it, and there's a little catch. The little catch is that anytime your partner offers an idea, you respond starting with the words, yes, but. So it'll be like, hey, you want to get dinner tonight? And you'll answer, yes, but I have to go home to see my family tonight. And your partner will try to say something else that starts with yes, but. Any questions about the activity? Yes, but you don't want to ask. All right, I'll start the 60-second timer now. Try to make a plan for dinner with each other tonight, always saying yes, but. Go ahead. Let's pause there. Okay, we're going to do a variation of this. In the next iteration of this activity, it'll be the same thing, same goal, make a plan for dinner tonight. This time, you always respond to your partner starting with the words yes and. Okay, any questions about this version of the activity? Let's give it a try. Go ahead. Let's pause. All right, let's briefly debrief on the activity. The first version of this, you were yes-butting each other. What was that experience like for you? It's frustrating. It's challenging. It was what? It was uncomfortable. Yeah, it's challenging, uncomfortable. Doesn't seem to go well for most people. And the yes and experience, what was that like for you? Energizing, friendly. You actually have a dinner plan. All right. Yeah. So you could actually come to some conclusion. This is the experience that most people have with this. And this is, it turns out, I just learned this morning. This is an activity that somebody published in 1961 in a book for actors. This is an activity that a lot of improv actors use. And this idea of positive bias, you can sort of, we can imitate what improv actors do. The first rule of improv is to say yes to each other, to respect each other and the ideas that you're creating together. This is how good improv acting teams, this is how good acting teams work. This is really how any good team works. You say yes to each other, at least temporarily, so you can evaluate the person's contribution and their ideas. So this is where positive bias is the foundation of really good teams. I've actually got a case at one of my clients where the team's scrum master is an improv actor. The people analytics person in the company didn't know that, but she did know from measuring the teams that they measured highest on safety, they measured highest on performance and engagement and tenure at the company and everything else. And then the missing piece was the Scrum Master's an improv actor, so he knows all these special things. He has all these unique skills to help that team be their best, to help them feel safe and contribute. So we'll add on to positive bias. The next layer in the building blocks is freedom. Freedom, like autonomy. I think we heard the word autonomy as a characteristic of best team ever. The core protocols, the behavior patterns that go along with freedom. So now we've got actual behavior patterns observed by watching these high-performance teams in the lab and then teaching them back to teams. The first one is called PASS. PASS goes like this. Anytime you don't want to do something with your team, anytime you want to opt out, assuming you've got this as an agreement that it's okay to opt out, you just say, I pass. And the next person takes their turn. Like it could be your turn in the daily scrum, it could be your turn if you're mob programming or something and it's your turn to drive. You don't want to do it, you just say I pass. And people accept that, they don't even question you, they don't coerce you, they don't try to get you to do the thing anyway, they don't talk about you for having done it, for having passed. They don't ask you why you're passing, it's just okay to pass. And then checkout is kind of like pass with more, pass plus plus. When you can't be engaged when present, so one of the core commitments, sort of the value statement that you could use with your team is to commit to engage when present. That means that when you're present, physically present, you're totally mentally present, and like totally present. Your heart is there when you're with your team, totally present. If you can't do that, maybe you have something more important to do somewhere else, or you just don't feel right with your team at the moment. If for any reason you can't be present, you check out. You make yourself physically not present. This is something that we see high-performing teams do. If they got something more important to do, people can go do that. If this meeting isn't accomplishing the goal they want, they can leave. They can go do that. So checkout works like this. You just say, I'm checking out, and you leave. I'm checking out. And you guys did that perfectly. Nobody talked about me after I left. That's one of the agreements that goes along with it. Oh, you did. You can't do that. No. Nobody chased me out of the room and tried to pull me back in. It's safe on high-performing teams for people to physically check out when they're already mentally or in their hearts checked out. So these are some characteristics, behaviors that we notice in high-performing teams. You can take this with your team. You could make everything opt-in on your team. And if people don't want to opt in at the moment, for any reason, that's okay. When you look at the high-performing teams at Google, for example, at least half of the teams at Google are formed by people who decided that they wanted to be on that team and work together. They weren't assigned to work together, they weren't assigned to work on that product, they weren't commanded to do it that way. They just decided they wanted to work together on that product, doing it the way they're doing it. So you could try to replicate that with your teams. From that layer of autonomy and freedom, we add on this layer of self-awareness. On really high-performing teams, the individuals on the team know who they are and know what they want, they know how they feel at the moment. There are 3 behavior patterns that go along with self-awareness. And they're called check-in, ask for help, and personal alignment. And now we'll get to an activity. I actually have some worksheets up here. You don't really need the worksheet, but it helps if you at least have a notepad and a pen to write down some of the stuff as we go. So here's an activity. Fill in the blank. How do you feel right now? You can use any words you want. And we'll do version 2 of this activity. This time it's multiple choice. So now fill in the blank with one or more of those words. glad, sad, mad, or afraid. How do you feel right now? Which one of those words most closely matches how you're feeling right now? If you're not sure, you can sort of iterate over the list. Do you feel glad? Do you feel sad? Do you feel mad? Do you feel afraid? Or you could just pick a random one and try it out. Okay, and we'll add on to this. You can maybe add on some information to describe why you feel that way at the moment. All right, now we're going to turn this into a group activity. This will be in groups of three people. So get yourself a group of 3 people. Yeah? I'm in reserve? All right. Okay, here's the activity. This is the behavior pattern called check-in. It's an emotion check-in with your teammates. Here's the script to follow. All you have to do is follow this script, steps 1 through 4. In your group, each one of you will take a turn being the speaker. When it's your turn, you'll say, just like you wrote down, so you've already practiced this, I feel blank, fill in the blank with glad, sad, mad, or afraid, 1 or more. Optionally, add more information about why you feel that way. Oh, by the way, you could pass. We have freedom. It's safe to opt out. You finish it up by saying, I'm in. That just indicates you're done with your part of the activity. You're done with your part of the script. When you say, I'm in, the other 2 people in your group simply say, welcome. All right, so it might go like this. You might say, I feel glad, I'm really happy to be here at Agile Maine Day with all of you and all of you up there upstairs. I'm sad, I'm away from my family. I came to Portland Wednesday night, I live in Boston, and I miss them. My son was here yesterday helping me teach a class. That was really cool, he's 23 years old, so I'm glad about that. And I'm glad we got to spend the day together. I'm in. And then you all say welcome, yeah. Okay, so that's how the activity goes. Each person in your group of 3 take a turn playing the role speaker and checking in with how you feel right now. Go ahead.
Hi. Hi. I feel glad to be here at Agile Maine Day for all of you today. I'm afraid I'm going to run late to a commitment that I have in Boston at 5:30 this afternoon. But I'm in.
I'm glad to be here at Agile Maine Day today because I'm really encouraged to learn more about how to build a high-performance team. I am afraid that later on tonight I'm meeting my boyfriend's parents and their own families, so I'm tricky about all of that, but I'm in.
I'm mad at my son for missing the 6:15 train from Boston on Wednesday night, and he didn't arrive until like 1:45 in the morning. From the hotel room tour, and getting All right, let's pause there. Let's pause and debrief on that experience. How did that go for you? It was great. Anybody else? Something similar or different? It was fun. Oh, okay, it was funny. We're making each other laugh. Oh, yeah. Anybody else? Something similar or different? You found it easy to do, but not a behavior that you normally do with your teams, especially work teams. Yeah. And this isn't something we normally do with work teams. This is not like the default team culture, the default work culture. It turns out that if you watch high-performing teams, this is something they do. We're talking measurably high-performing teams, and this is a behavior you observe. They share how they're feeling with each other. Oops, that's the bell. They share how they're feeling with each other. And this is an easy script that you can use to do the same behavior with your team. There are a lot of teams that add check-in on to their daily stand-up as a magical fourth question to answer. What did you get done in the last 24 hours? What do you plan to get done in the next 24 hours? Do you have any impediments? And how do you feel? And so this is something you can do with your team, and it could be that easy. Just add it on as a question in your daily stand-up.
What was the point of having us answer the question first and then choosing from a list of words?
Why did I have you do the activity in iterations? With fill in the blank with anything you want, and then only one of those 4 words. Yeah, because at first I just wanted it to be super easy for you. Like you could use any words you want. And then, well, I didn't want to make it hard for you, but these 4 particular words, they're the 4 sort of like primary emotions that all humans can identify. There's psychology tests going back to the 1960s by Paul Ekman about the ability to recognize emotions. And these are the 4 that all humans everywhere on Earth can experience. Right, so this is totally cross-cultural, and you can do this with any team anywhere in the world. Here's another fill in the blank with any word you want to make it easy. And I might make it multiple choice later. So fill in the blank with the most important thing in the whole universe for you. What do you want more than anything else? What do you really, really want? And think really big. Think really important. And that really big or really important thing, it's a want, it's not a have. So why don't you have it? What's blocking you? Answer that question for yourself. Why don't you have that really important thing? Or why don't you have all of it, as much of it as you want? Okay, and here's version 2 of fill in the blank for I want blank. Now imagine that if you mastered one of these virtues, if you mastered one of these special skills, if you were like a 9th degree black belt in one of these things, and you could channel all of it that exists in the universe, make believe that if you could do that, it would eliminate everything that's blocking you, and it would let you get everything you want. Which one of those would it be? Fill in the blank with that one. And the list is self-awareness, integrity, courage, passion, peace, presence, self-care, fun, wisdom, and health. There's an asterisk next to self-awareness because that's the default answer. If you're not sure what you want, pick self-awareness. Thank you very much. So which one of those? And self-awareness really is the right answer. You can just pick that one. This could be multiple choice of one, or pick one of the others. And whichever one you picked, we'll call that your personal alignment. This is one of the protocols, one of the behaviors that you can observe on high-performing teams. Now, it's not that you pick one of these particular words and then you're a high-performing team. It's that you have a deep sense of what you're aligned with, a deep sense of what your purpose is, a deep sense of sort of how to gauge whether you're doing the right things with your life. So for example, if your alignment was self-care, and you had some choices to make, this choice or that choice, you would pick whichever one most closely aligns with self-care, because that would get you more of what you want for yourself. So that's the idea of the personal alignment. There are behavior patterns for connecting with each other. Now that we've got positive bias on the team, we've got freedom and autonomy. People are working together because they choose to, not because they have to, on things they want to. We've got self-aware individuals, like really awesome individuals as members of the team, and then we connect them together into a cohesive whole. So there's some behavior patterns for connecting into a cohesive whole. You've already seen how check-in is also a connection sort of activity, because we just did it and you kind of connected with each other. There are two more. Ask for help is about connecting with each other because you have to ask somebody else for help and they might offer it to you, and that's a way to connect. There's a behavior pattern called intention check, which is also related to positive bias. When somebody in your team does something you don't quite understand, you try out this thing called unconditional positive regard, and you ask them what their intention was. What did they hope the outcome would be when they did that thing or said that thing? And then investigate is a quasi-scripted way to ask each other questions, to initiate really clean, unbiased conversations with each other, to learn more about the people that you're working with. This is something that people on really good teams do. They ask each other questions versus telling each other exactly what to do. Now, when people are connecting with each other like this on their teams, there's a really cool thing that happens. I think I experienced a little bit of it here already. We usually do this investigate activity together in your group of 3. We don't quite have enough time. It's going to be lunch soon, and I want to make sure we do that. But here's a cool thing that happens. It always happens to me. I get this physical sensation right around here, my diaphragm, and well, I just gave away the punchline by rubbing my belly. So the thing that happens to me is the same feeling as the word love. When I feel like I love somebody, that's the same feeling right there in my diaphragm. And that's sort of the condition of people on high-performing teams. It's this feeling of love for each other and amongst each other. Love is kind of a weird word at most workplaces, so you could try the word friendship instead. And that would be okay. It's the same thing. And it's kind of like if there was a high-performance team, like in that room back there through the glass, and we were watching them, their behaviors would look like they're really good friends, like they care about each other, like they care about what they're doing together, and that they want to be successful together. So this little sequence of activities we did is sort of like the building blocks for getting into that state of friendship with each other. And this is kind of like the cycle of friendship, the easy recipe to follow. So you could repeat some of these activities we did, the yes and activity, the checking in with each other, the figuring out what you want and maybe asking each other about what's really important to each other. This is what people who care about each other do. And if that's too woo-woo for you, you've already seen this, but here's the punchline. You can just run this script. We can do this as source code. You can actually just run this script in the brains of the people on your team. You can run the script in your brain and get the same result. We add on with, now that we've got a really great cohesive team, people aligned with each other, people in that state of high friendship with each other. You can call it shared vision even. Then we can do anything you want on top of that to get that team's results accomplished. You can add on Scrum or something else once you've got that state of cohesion in the team. Without that state of cohesion, it doesn't matter what you're doing with the team. No amount of Scrum or Agile pixie dust will help the team be a high-performing team without this stuff at the foundation of it. There are some particular behavior patterns. Decider and resolution are ways to quickly and effectively collect ideas and make the best decisions with each other. And then perfection game is a really good way to solicit and receive feedback on an idea or something you've created with your team. And then finally, on really high-performing teams, they have a way to tell each other that they've deviated from their agreements. Whatever their team agreements are, if you've deviated from them, you want to get back on track. So they've got one of these in the core protocols. This is really effective for high-performing teams. So think about this stuff that we just shared in 40 minutes. Is there something here that you could take back to your work, to your family, to any group of people that you care about? Yeah? How could you implement this on a non-trusting team, or is it fruitless? Well, the way to implement this is to invite people to try it out. You can't force this on people, right? The foundational layer, the second layer of the stack is freedom, which means like non-coercion. You can't force this on people. You can only do this with people who are interested in it and at least a little bit open to those ideas of non-negation, no negativity, and pretending for just long enough to try it out and see if it will work. And we can talk more after this if you'd like. So you could try this out. Maybe there's some idea here that you heard that you could try out with yourself or with some group of people that you care about. I encourage you to fill in the blanks here right now or just after we finish up or during lunchtime and actually try something out. And you can email me or text me and ask me for help if you'd like. All right, so here's kind of like the set of key takeaways. If you want a high-performing team, you definitely want psychological safety. That's a subset of team emotional intelligence, so you want that. And one particular way to get that, one particular set of behaviors that you could try out is this stuff called core protocols. So you can do this on your teams, assuming they're open to it, open to trying it out. You know, it's kind of like the Agile stuff. The Agile stuff doesn't actually work that well for teams that aren't interested in it and don't want to do it. Same thing here. I do have a few copies of this book here. The book is $5. I trust you to just leave $5 and walk away with a book. That would be really cool. You actually don't need the book. All the stuff is available for free at this website, thecoreprotocols.org. It's just the list of the protocols, the scripts that you can follow with your team, the behaviors. So you can try them out. And if you want help, you can ask me for help. Here's the big picture for how we do this with real teams. We run some diagnostics on your team. We figure out what their current measurements are, their current state is for safety and TMEI and performance. And then we do a class. You know, this was sort of like a really short version of the class like we did yesterday. With your team, we do coaching sessions to help you practice the stuff because you can't really just take a class and do the stuff well. Kind of like imagine taking a half-day class on guitar and never practicing again. You probably wouldn't be that good at it, at least a week from then. So you need to keep practicing. So we have sessions that help you practice. And we've even got trainer certification, which is intended to help you roll this out in a large-scale way. Like if I'm the only person in the world who can teach this stuff, it's not gonna help you in your big company. So I want to help you be able to do this inside your company. We've got a nice podcast. We've got some fun things going on. Some other events happening. If you want to take one of these full-day classes, there's an online class coming up soon as well. And finally, maybe you have one of these that says session feedback. This is actually a version of perfection game, which is one of the protocols, a way to solicit, a way to ask for help. I would love your help. Will you help me make this session the best it could be? all you have to do is fill in this form and leave it up here on the stage. I'd love your help. And finally, it's time for us to break, maybe get lunch, I'm not sure. Thank you for being here. Thanks for playing along and participating in the activities. I really had a lot of fun doing this with you. I invite you to ask me for help. You've got my contact information. You can email me or text me or call me at any time of day. Although if it's late at night, I might not answer. But maybe in the morning I will. So if you want help with any of this stuff, just let me know, and I'll do my best to help you. Thanks for being here.